How can you get your age so wrong?
Oh no, what a shame. What a shame. Here I was preparing a special episode of the show to mark Meghan Markle's 45th birthday. I've got Link Lauren, one of Meghan Markle's biggest supporters in the United States of America, and we were just going to celebrate how this lady has turned 45. And Link, it's just such bad news because all of a sudden, this birthday, this 45th birthday, has turned into an absolute disaster for Meghan Markle.
I think when I was 30, if I thought about 50, I thought that is an awful long way away. And I don't really need to think about it. And then I blinked and I'm 50. That's crazy.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Many people out there have been speculating on that Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually older?
Meghan was born, and she was born as a C-section, so she was put in my arm. I was the first person to hold her. Her little hand went on my fingers like that.
She celebrated her 45th birthday yesterday. That's the age printed on the birthday cake, the number shared in social media captions, and the same figure newspapers across both sides of the Atlantic repeated without hesitation. But only a few hours later, the internet exploded once again. Thousands of comments appeared beneath royal videos with people pulling out calculators, counting backwards, comparing timelines, and insisting they were getting completely different results. It happens every August, but this time, something stood out far more than the numbers themselves. The conversation wasn't just repeating, it was missing the biggest question of all. I've spent years reading those comments, and this birthday made me notice something I had somehow overlooked before. Everyone seems determined to ask the same people the same questions.
There's nothing original here.
I hope you're having the best birthday you've ever had. Thank you for everything.
What if Meghan Markle was adopted? What if there more to her birth than just her age? Could it be that she doesn't know her own age because she's been lied to by her father and mother? Could it be that's why Doria doesn't have a bond with Meghan Markle? Because what mother leaves her daughter when she's 3 or 4 years?
I remember when she was born, big new addition to the family, and we just have a very young sister here.
This is a copy of 17 magazine, and it was published in March of 1997. In it, it mentions our Meghan from Los Angeles and that she was 21 years old at the time of publication. That would make her birth year at around 1976.
And you're wondering, why does her age matter at all? Because her age would also have an impact on her ability to have children. Because if Meghan Markle is 4 years older than what we have been led to believe, it makes it even more difficult to believe that she was able to get pregnant so quickly.
And there was something, in my opinion, missing in their eyes. It didn't seem real to me. And there's a very big difference. It was deliberate. I'll tell you why. What she told the royal family, what she told Harry, wouldn't have jived, wouldn't have been consistent with the truth.
Yet almost nobody points their attention toward the one person who could answer without needing old files, fading memories, or archived paperwork. Every debate seems to circle around the father. He would know, people say. He was there. A father knows the day his daughter entered the world. But does everyone keep looking in the wrong direction while ignoring the one witness who never left the center of the story? People bring up the half-sister, old classmates, school yearbooks, and that magazine page from 1997 that gets pulled out every summer like an old holiday decoration. Every year it returns, and every year the same arguments start all over again. Then there are the books, the documentaries, the court filings, and even a hugely expensive Netflix series. Across all those years and all that material,
it was absolutely clear that this young woman was strong. It didn't matter. She believed in women, she believed in her own power, and she wasn't afraid to reach out and say, I want my power.
August 4th, 40, Meghan.
Her father claims that she was born in 1981. So if she was born in 1981 when Yasmin did that commercial, and like in 1997, she would have been 16 years of age.
Meghan Markle is once again getting trolled. Oh, poor Meghan, the most trolled person in the entire world.
I recall seeing this photo. It was from an article that came out back on November 11, 2017, before Harry and Meghan got engaged. And that is a super important detail. This article that was published on November 11, 2017, with the headline, "The Look That Hooked Meghan's Dad," the charming high school photos of the woman who could be Prince Harry's mother-in-law showing the sweet eyes and afro that Ms. Markle thinks made her father fall for her. Written by Caroline Graham. Yes, the same Caroline Graham who was responsible for publishing those staged photos that ruined Thomas Markle's relationship with his alleged daughter.
Something surprising keeps standing out. Nobody seems to have asked the one person who never needed a document to know the answer, her mother. Doria Ragland wasn't standing outside the hospital or waiting for someone to call. She was inside the delivery room on August 4th, 1981, at West Park Hospital in Canoga Park, in California's San Fernando Valley. Whatever everyone else in this story may have collected over the decades, she has something none of them can ever recreate. She was the one giving birth. That's not second-hand knowledge, that's first-hand experience. Yet across 45 years, nobody seems to have publicly asked her the simple question everyone else keeps debating. Yesterday, there were 45 candles on the birthday cake, and standing somewhere behind that celebration is a woman who has never been publicly asked to count them herself.
Fresh-faced and full of hope for the future, she could, surely, never in her wildest dreams have imagined that her daughter would one day grow up and fall in love with a prince. This is Meghan Markle's mother as a teenager with captivating looks, seen in an enchanting photo published for the first time here today. Doria Ragland was just 16 and an outstanding pupil at Fairfax High School in Los Angeles when these pictures were taken for the school yearbook in 1972. Her life then revolved around her studies, listening to Marvin Gaye and fun-filled nights at a local Mexican taco joint with friends. But just 7 years later, Doria would fall head over heels in love with Thomas Markle, a handsome Hollywood lighting director 12 years her senior. Meghan has previously said of their romance, "I like to think he was drawn to her sweet eyes and her afro, plus their shared love of antiques." This is the 1972 yearbook, and there you can see that there is Doria. Now, from what I gather, Fairfax High School in their yearbooks only have pictures of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And in this photo, Doria is a sophomore, which is 10th grade. So that would mean, logically, she would have graduated in 1974.
That's why we're approaching this differently today. We're not here to argue with anyone. We're not waving paperwork in front of you or telling anybody to stop asking questions. Instead, we're looking at what members of the family themselves have written over the years, including books, legal filings, emails that later became public through court proceedings, and their own recorded statements. Once I placed all of those next to each other, I noticed something I honestly didn't expect to find. This family seems to contain more conflicting numbers than actual people, and buried inside all of it is one comment Meghan herself made years before meeting Harry, speaking openly about age in a way that almost nobody ever quotes correctly. We'll get there soon, because once you see everything surrounding it, those words take on a completely different meaning. Stay with me.
For years, one of the biggest mysteries surrounding Meghan Markle's mother behind a wall of silence. Questions about her mother's whereabouts were dismissed, while anyone who dared to investigate too deeply found themselves facing extraordinarily harsh consequences. The article I'm about to show you that the palace failed to bury finally explains Doria's long absence. According to Mr. Markle, Meghan Markle lived with him from the age of 10 until she graduated from high school. Meghan Markle alleges many times that her mother lived just 40 minutes down the road from her. Given LA, that is actually a very short distance. The high school principal from Meghan Markle and all the teachers did not know that Doria was Black because they had never met her. Mr. Markle was single-handedly raising Meghan Markle. No vestiges of Doria. Why wouldn't a devoted mother go to meet the teachers, which is mandatory in the state of California. Only one parent has full custody and guardianship of the daughter, which seems to be the case for Mr. Markle.
Because the bigger picture changes how that remark is often viewed. First, let's look at who has actually been questioned over the years. The list is much longer than most people realize, yet strangely enough, neither parent appears on it. Former classmates have been contacted. Someone compared a childhood friend's birth year. Others searched California state indexes. Company filings in London have been examined. Someone even tracked down a magazine from a 1997 archive. Documents after documents after documents. People have searched almost everywhere imaginable. Yet after all these years, I still can't find a single example of someone sitting, either parent down, and simply asking one straightforward question about the year. Not the father, not the mother. There's also an order of credibility that rarely gets discussed openly. So let's talk about it. A father remembers a date from memory. It may be an excellent memory, but it's still memory. A half-sister reaches a conclusion using dates and calculations from events she remembers as a teenager. A mother remembers the day from the delivery, room itself. Those are not identical categories of testimony. One comes directly from being there. The others rely, at least in part, on recollection and reconstruction. One viewer left a comment beneath our previous video that really caught my attention. It read, "Don't understand. Her family lived a life around her. They must know her age. Why are they not telling? Her dad must know when she came into the world." 59 people liked that comment. And honestly, I was thinking along exactly the same lines at the time. Every one of us focused on someone who was certainly present, but somehow looked past the one person who unquestionably was there from the very first second. And here's another detail that makes the silence even more interesting. Doria has never seemed like someone unwilling to speak publicly. In December 2022, she gave her first public interview. She opened by saying, the last 5 years had been challenging, and that she was finally ready to have her own voice heard. Ready to have her voice heard. She recalled the moment her daughter told her, "Mommy, I'm going out with Prince Harry." She discussed race, media attention, feeling followed, and the anxiety that came with it. Yet throughout that entire production, nobody turned toward her and asked, "What year was that, Doria? What time was it? What did the hospital wristband say?" The question simply never came. That's unusual on its own, but it becomes even more interesting once you compare the written records from everyone else. Now pay close attention, because none of what follows comes from random online speculation. Everything in this section comes directly from the published fact check, written specifically to address this debate. Start with Samantha's book, which she described as an effort to set the record straight regarding her sister. She introduces Meghan's arrival with a colorful description about the great migration of genes bringing the ship Meghan Flower to dock at their home. Then she provides a date, August 31st, 1981. The year is 1981. I'm not pretending otherwise. That's exactly what she wrote. But the birthday celebrated yesterday was August 4th. Samantha's own book records August 31st instead, a difference of 27 days from the date everyone recognizes. Then comes the legal filing. In her complaint, Samantha describes there being a 17-year age gap between herself and Meghan. 17. That figure is often repeated whenever people argue the discussion should end there. However, Samantha was born in November 1964. Counting from November 1964 to August 1981 produces roughly 16 years and 8 months, not a full 17 years. The number appears rounded upward inside a legal filing involving her own sister. Next comes Meghan's own writing. In a private email from 2018 that later surfaced during court proceedings, she described her father's older children as being 15 and 17 years old when her parents separated. Yet Samantha, born in 1964, is older than her brother, who was born in 1966. The older sibling is listed with the younger age. Even the fact-checkers who reviewed these records acknowledged the inconsistency. Their published conclusion stated that the ages were clearly slightly confused. Let's add everything together. One published book giving the wrong day. One legal filing rounding an age gap upward. One private email reversing the siblings' ages. Then a fact-check documenting those discrepancies before ultimately printing false beneath the broader claim. And to be fair, the official birth record remains the official birth record. Nobody is pretending otherwise. The California State Index exists, and it states what it states. Anyone can examine it themselves, but it's still an official record completed by people at the time. Meanwhile, the family members who could independently recall events from memory have between them produced a different day, a rounded age difference, and sibling ages that don't line up when checked with a basic calculator. Which source should carry the greatest weight? That's exactly why this discussion keeps resurfacing every year. Now we reach the part that really made me stop and think, because understanding why people continue asking the question is part of the conversation. Then, let's do something surprisingly few people have actually done. Follow the numbers all the way through before reaching a conclusion. Let's take another look at what Meghan's parents were actually doing in 1976, according to the timeline that has been publicly described over the years. They had not even met yet. That's an important point because it sits at the center of this entire discussion. Meghan herself has written that her parents met in the late 1970s while her father was working as a lighting director on a television soap opera, and her mother was doing temporary work at the same studio. Reports over the years describe a whirlwind romance that lasted around 6 months before they married. The wedding itself is easy to place on the calendar because it took place on December 23, 1979, a temple on Sunset Boulevard, a monk in orange robes, a bride aged 23, a groom aged 35, and years later, an uncle reportedly telling a newspaper that nobody in the family had even heard about Thomas until the wedding invitation suddenly appeared in the mailbox. Then there is the other timeline that has circulated online for years. Some people continue to argue that the birth happened in 1976, or perhaps 1977 instead. If that version were somehow true, it would place the birth years before Meghan's parents were even introduced to one another, according to the public timeline. That would not simply be a small discrepancy or an ordinary mistake with dates. It would completely change the sequence of events that has been publicly described for decades. Now, I want to be absolutely clear about something, because this often gets misunderstood. I'm not saying that online speculation proves anything. I'm also not saying it automatically falls apart. What I'm saying is that if someone argues the birth year is different, then the discussion goes far beyond changing one number on a document. It changes the entire family timeline, the studio story, the 6-month romance, the temple wedding, the baby arriving 19 months later. Every part of that sequence would suddenly have to be viewed differently. The order would change, the context would change. The entire story would have to be reconsidered from the very beginning. And that's really the point worth thinking about. This discussion isn't only about one certificate or one date. It's about whether the public timeline has always been presented consistently. That's why people keep returning to it year after year, instead of simply moving on. Now let's look at another part of the story. Public records show Doria Ragland's birth date as September 2nd, 1956, in Cleveland, Ohio. That would make her 24 years old on August 4th, 1981, turning 25 just 29 days later. First child, newly married, beginning a completely new chapter of life. For many parents, details like that become unforgettable memories. Anyone who has ever spoken with a parent knows how vividly those moments are remembered. Ask almost any mother how old she was when her first child arrived, and the answer often comes instantly. Many remember the season, the weather, the hospital room, the doctor, even little conversations from that day. Those memories tend to stay with people for life. So here's what makes some observers curious. Doria has remained remarkably private, despite years of worldwide attention surrounding her daughter. Across all the interviews, documentaries, headlines, books, debates, and television specials, she has spoken publicly only on very rare occasions. When she finally participated in a widely watched interview, she explained that she wanted her own voice to be heard. She had cameras, time, and an enormous audience listening. Yet, despite years of public discussion surrounding Meghan's age, she did not directly address that specific topic. Now, of course, that alone proves absolutely nothing. Mothers are not normally expected to publicly certify their children's birthdays. Most families never face that kind of attention, but supporters of different theories often point out that this debate has continued in newspapers, books, documentaries, online discussions, and court-related reporting for years. Through all of that, the one person many people believe could potentially offer personal recollections has largely remained silent on the subject. Everyone else connected to the story is often said to have some reason for speaking. Commentators build audiences, authors sell books, family members sometimes have their own disagreements or perspectives. Critics and supporters both have strong opinions. Even people making videos like this have every reason to acknowledge that audiences are interested. Doria, however, has mostly stayed away from the spotlight. That is why some viewers continue asking whether hearing directly from her would settle anything at all, or whether it would simply create another round of debate. Then we arrive at another topic that often appears in discussions online: the birth certificates. Supporters of different viewpoints frequently argue that official documents should settle questions once and for all. Yet debates have continued anyway, especially after later stories involving another royal birth generated fresh conversations. Many viewers will remember the story describing candles in a hospital room, Sanskrit chanting playing in the background, a photograph of Princess Diana placed nearby, 2 epidurals mentioned in one version of events, and then a new mother reportedly returning home only a short time after giving birth. That account sparked endless conversations online. One viewer even commented she gave birth in hospital at age 42 or 43 after 2 epidurals and was home 2 hours later. Really? Hundreds of people responded with their own opinions. Another person wrote, "You can't get 2 epidurals. Sorry." Someone else skipped the medical discussion entirely and simply asked, would hospitals even allow lighted candles in patient rooms? Wouldn't that be a fire hazard? Later explanations suggested they were battery-operated candles instead, which naturally led some people to ask another question entirely. Who remembers to pack decorative battery candles for a maternity ward? But here's something that deserves just as much attention. Nearly every detail people repeat about that day comes from one source: Prince Harry's own memoir. Memoirs are personal recollections. They are written from one person's perspective. By their nature, they reflect memories, interpretations, and experiences. That doesn't automatically make every detail inaccurate, but it also doesn't mean readers should automatically treat every sentence as independently verified evidence. That's simply something worth remembering whenever anyone reads a personal memoir. It's also important to draw a clear line here. None of this discussion is about the children themselves. They had absolutely no choice in any public controversy and should never be the focus of criticism. The discussion concerns only the public accounts presented by adults, the stories shared over the years, and why different versions continue generating conversation. So where does all of this leave us after another birthday passes? Much the same place people have found themselves every August for years. A state index pointing one direction, published accounts pointing another, old magazine references that continue being discussed, court filings that people interpret differently, and countless viewers reaching their own conclusions. Whether someone believes every question has already been answered or believes there are still unanswered details, the conversation clearly hasn't disappeared. Even the famous story about the washing up liquid advertisement, often credited as one of Meghan's earliest public achievements, has been revisited by various writers and publications over the years. When even well-known stories continue being examined from different angles, it's not surprising that people revisit other parts of the public timeline too. But I promised something near the beginning, so here it is. Back in 2015, years before Harry entered the picture, Meghan was promoting the legal drama she starred in when she was asked about her age. Her response is interesting because many people quote only part of it instead of the full answer. She explained, "I think as women actors, the industry can assume they have a shelf life. I'm always told, don't say your age. I'm 33 and I'm really comfortable with that. If anyone has a problem, then it's their problem, not mine." Read those words carefully. First, she describes an industry where actresses are frequently advised not to reveal their ages. Then, only moments later, she openly states her own age anyway. Some people see that as confidence. Others think it simply reflects honesty despite industry pressure. Either way, her comments also acknowledge that age can matter in Hollywood, something many performers have discussed for decades. So perhaps the bigger question isn't whether people speculate. People always speculate about public figures. The more interesting question is whether the people closest to the story will ever decide to address those discussions directly. Until then, everyone continues interpreting the same collection of public records, interviews, articles, and statements in different ways. Now I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Do you think the silence simply reflects a family's desire for privacy, or do you believe it leaves room for continued questions? If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like the video because it really helps more people discover the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, because there are plenty more stories and timeline breakdowns coming soon. And if you ever come across a verified interview where Doria Ragland directly discusses this specific subject, share it below. I genuinely like to see it. If that conversation ever happens publicly, it could answer long-standing questions for some people, or simply begin an entirely new discussion. Either way, it would certainly be a moment worth watching.